Lesson 13. Are you primary or secondary? A primary source is an eyewitness, someone who saw an event with his own eyes or heard it with his own ears. A primary source is somebody who was there. Great great grandpa. Yep, I saw it with my own two eyes. I was young back in those days, about 15. I was standing back at the barn when I sees young Georgie, that's what we called him then, come around the corner with a hatchet. Then he commences hacking away on that cherry tree. I don't know why he did it. Didn't seem like his pa would care for him chopping down the cherry tree. But he continues a hacking, smiling all the while, till the little tree falls. Yep, I saw it happen all right. Great great grandpa is a primary source for what happened when young Georgie chopped down a cherry tree. He was there and actually saw the event himself. If great great grandpa didn't see the cherry tree chopped down himself, but heard about it from somebody else, he would be a secondary source. A secondary source is not an eyewitness, but is someone who heard the story from somebody else. Pa. Yes, son, my great great grandpa told me all about what happened. Little George was there in front of his dad when his dad says to him, Son, do you know anything about my cherry tree out behind the barn? It seems somebody has chopped it down. Then George pipes up, Father, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down that cherry tree. Okay, son, his father says. Go to the woodshed out back and cut for me a large switch. Your honesty surely won't save you from a thrashing. Because he hadn't been born yet, Pa didn't actually see the scene he describes. However, he did hear about it from somebody else. Pa is a secondary source. When we study history, there are many sources which tell us what happened at a particular event. Some of these sources are primary sources, and some of them are secondary sources. When we read a history book, we often read an account written by somebody who was not there. The authors of history books will research an event, read about what happened, and then write about it in their own words. It might come as a shock to you, but the things you read in a history book aren't necessarily true. They are often the author's interpretations of an event. This brings us to our second rule for analyzing sources. I'm right. No, I'm right. Rule for primary and secondary sources. A primary source is generally more reliable than a secondary source because a story can change as it passes from one person to the next. Historians believe that a primary source who actually witnessed the event is usually more accurate than a secondary source who only heard it recounted. This is because each time somebody passes on a story to the next person, he might add a little bit to it. Son. George Washington was a really cool guy. My pa told me all about him. He said when George was 17 years old, his dad gave him an axe that was 7 feet long and weighed 42 pounds. George chopped down 20 cherry trees with it, then told his dad. His dad got real mad at him and grounded him for a week. This isn't exactly what his pa told him. This son is adding a few things to his father's story to make it more interesting. This doesn't mean history books aren't useful to read. We should read a history book when we want to get an overview of what happened during an event. Sometimes watching a movie about an event may be a good idea. If the movie is good, it might get us excited about the event and time period it is set in. We might go to the library and look up what really happened. However, when watching movies such as Gone with the Wind or The Great Escape, we have to be cautious. Movie makers want their movies to be dramatic and entertaining. They might make events in the past look more exciting than they really were. Gossips. People who like to spread news about other people are almost always secondary sources because they usually repeat to others what they heard from cousin Nessie, who heard it from Ralph's sister Margaret, who heard it from exercises. A1. What is the rule for primary and secondary sources? B. Say whether each of the following examples is a primary or secondary source. Number 2. History book. In the area west of the Mississippi from the period of 1870 to 1892, often referred to as the Wild West, nearly everybody wore a gun except Quakers and heroines. Saloons were often the scene of rough fistfights. Men, often intoxicated, would throw other men through saloon windows or through swinging doors. Due to mislabeled shipments of balsa wood to the American West, chairs were also built of a much lower tolerance. During this period, black was the most popular color for hats if you were a villain. Heroes most often wore white. Number 3. After we jumped into the water, it was every man for himself. I waited parallel to the beach with my squad because the heavy fire was directed towards the boats. As I was going straight towards the beach, I saw Lieutenant Hilscher go down on his knees as a shell exploded. He fell into the hole caused by the explosion. He died there on the beach. When I finally reached the edge of the water, I started to run towards the sea wall under a deafening roar of explosions and bullets. I saw a hole about 75 feet away, so I ran and jumped in, landing on top of O.T. Grimes, Sergeant Warner Hamlet, on D-Day, 1944. Number 4. Yes, sir, I was there. Leastways, my son was. Butch Cassidy came into the bank and said to the teller, "Hand over all your money and nobody gets hurt." He had a bag in his hands, and the teller commenced to fill in it with bills. When he was done, Butch strolls out the door real cool like. That man sure could rob a bank. Number 5. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen, and what a sight it is! A thrilling one, a marvelous sight. The sun is striking the windows of the observation deck on the westward side and sparkling like glittering jewels on the background of black velvet. Passengers are looking out the windows, waving. The ship is standing still now. The vast motors are just holding it just enough to keep from. It's broken into flames. It's flashing, flashing. It's flashing terrible. Oh, oh, oh. It's burst into flames. Oh my, this is terrible. Oh my, get out of the way, please. It is burning, bursting into flames, and it's falling. Oh, this is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, this is a terrible sight. Oh, and the humanity of all the passengers. I told you, it's a mass of smoking wreckage. Honest, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside the hangar where I can't see it. It's terrible. Folks, I'm going to have to stop for a moment because I've lost my voice. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed. Herbert Morrison, reporter for Chicago radio station WLS, describing the crash of the Hindenburg, May 6, 1937. Number 6. Prosecuting attorney. Can you tell me what happened on the night in question, ma'am? Miss Houseman. Yes, I can. I was standing on the street corner when the man right there went into the bank. He had a gun in one hand and an empty bag in the other. A minute later, I saw him coming out. He still had the gun and the bag was full of money. Number 7. About 65 million years ago, a meteor about 2 miles wide struck the Earth. The meteor's impact, followed by extended darkness from dust and debris thrown into the atmosphere, followed by more climate changes, weakened the last remaining dinosaurs to the point of extinction. Number 8. Sam. Did you know that the movie The Great Escape is a true story? I watched it last night. In it, Big X escapes from the German prisoner of war camp and then gets recaptured by the Gestapo. Number 9. Encyclopedia Britannica. The cheetah is a tawny-coated, black-spotted cat native to Africa and Southwest Asia, the fastest land animal capable of running at speeds of up to 70 miles per hour.